Okay, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. James in the wings. I apologize. We're running a few minutes behind for those of you who are on live. Lots to do. So we are officially launching the Seishin Teki Kyoyo book on. Well, I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so we're going to take a look at during this episode are actually three elements within the Togakure Seishin Teki. I cover 11 of them in the new book, which again we'll talk about later. So we're going to take a look at these as kind of a I don't know, not just a way to whet your appetite, but to get us started. Okay, and so without further ado, we'll just roll things and jump right in. All right, so I'll see you as soon as the intro is finished.
So, the big question is this. How are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio.
All right, and I am back. Oh, there I am. All right, so James, is there a lag on your end that you can see or anything for me? No, maybe. Stayed in my training T-shirt. Anyway, I don't know if you can see me or hear me. Hopefully, you guys. Hopefully, I'm on. All right. Anyway, nothing like technology, right? It's working. Okay, awesome. There's no lag or anything like that.
No, sir.
Okay, cool. All right. So, well, you know what? Let's get this out of the way. Well, I don't mean to get it out of the way, but like, who's on? Let's do our thing that way, and then we'll keep on keeping on, I guess. So, who do we have? Who's on?
So far, looks like Maui Barnett and Jared have checked in.
Cool. All right. So, all right. We have been in and out of this topic, this area. Whether you're local and you've been in classes, or you're in the Nimpo Master Class, or my Inner Circle guys, and you're in on the virtual classes. We've had at least an episode or two. We've talked about some of these things, but within the Togakure school, right? For those of you who are new to this, the very first training area, right, out of the Ninjutsu, 18 areas of ninja training, which of course we know is actually 36, right? Good. Okay. So as long as we know that, we're all good. Okay. So the very first one of the Ninjutsu is the Seishin Teki Kyoyo. Kyoyo generally means teachings, study lessons, developmental pursuits, that kind of thing, right? So Seishin Teki, spiritual refinement, that tends to like weird people out. So I tend to just say personal development and those kind of things, but it's just neither of those give it the justice, right? A lot of things just do not convert well into English or in other languages, I'm sure. Okay. But so I believe that this is a huge missing key, just like emotional training. And I don't mean like, wear your emotions on your sleeve, not that kind of thing. The emotional aspect, the drivers, right? These things are often arguably, right? They're missing from martial arts and self-defense training. Now, I'm going to clarify that, because when I say that they're missing, they're not missing. Like people would often say, no, I'm like in there, right? The emotions are good and the drive is there and whatever. I'm talking about intentionally there, and where the student or the practitioner has the ability to, one, shift emotional gears, and two, be able to operate effectively under any one of the core emotional drivers. Okay. When I say accidentally, what I mean is many martial arts, many self-defense systems have grown up around a specific emotional driver, right? And when I say that, we use a code, right? We use the Japanese, well, I guess it would be the Indo-Tibetan influenced model that made its way through China into Japan, that we know as the Godai, right? These 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and void. And again, people get all weirded out, right? They're not listed in. I'm not going to get into these kind of things, right? Because people often look for things in a very overt way. Anyway, so what we're talking about is like stable and undisturbed, right? Immovable, almost neutral, right? That an earth grounded. It's not an I'm not moving kind of attitude, right? That's stubbornness, which is a negative aspect of water, which is an overly emotional kind of thing, right? So all the elements, most people know the elements by way of their positive aspects, which is typically where we start folks off, but they all have negative aspects as well, except for void, ku, because the opposite of the ability to think, strategize, and create and communicate, those kind of things. The opposite of that is nothing, right? It's like when we say empty, we don't mean a bad translation of the Japanese. We mean duh, like there's nothing happening. Okay. Uh, Dead from the neck up. Anyway, so but Earth is immovable. We could say Fudoshin kind of thing, but it's undisturbed. It's whatever's going on isn't a threat. It's not perceived as a threat. It's not driving anything, right? Water is typically, the way we cover it, is a defensiveness kind of thing where we need time, we need space, that kind of thing. So there are some martial arts and self-defense systems and whatnot that either emotionally or strategically have you step back to create that time, that needed space, distance, safety bubble kind of thing before heading back in. So there's that kind of thing. Fire is representative of, get in there, strike first, strike hard, Cobra Kai, hoorah, that kind of thing. Wind, evasiveness, slippery, last second tricky timing kind of things. Aikido and those kind of things, right? So again, these things are part and parcel of specific things, and then people who, based on their own natural proclivities, I guess, right, their own typical way of either defaulting to a certain emotion based on aggression or threat or conflict, those kind of things, or based on how they think they would prefer to handle things. Sometimes the choice is based on legalities and stuff like that, right? But otherwise, based on these drivers, then they are typically attracted to this system or that system or whatever, because it's like me, right? That's me, man. That's me to a T. Well, that's great. Okay. Until we're in a situation where the natural emotional drivers in our psychophysical makeup, right, cause us to be doing other things because we're in over our head, or we've got to move now, or whatever it is, right? And we're just not like we're not feeling it emotionally, right? but the body is doing other things, right? And since these things are hardwired together, and the body physically moves better certain ways, in certain directions, under certain influencers, then right, it'd be a really good idea, right? So that's for a whole different thing. But when we're looking at Seishin Teki, often folks will confuse this with like the 7, sometimes you see 8 virtues, right, within the Bushido code, right? And while some of the things within the Seishin Teki have the same names, the perspective is different. Okay, so in the book we're launching, there's a little bit of a comparison in the back, just so folks kind of get their grounding, or they know, what we're talking about, how it's related. I have a whole other course that folks can get if they want to dive deeper into that goes into more of the history and how those things were developed, and how the list that a lot of folks might have on posters or in books or whatever, 7 or 8 or whatever, right? Could have been 7, 8, could have been 10, could have been 15, could have been 4, right? For all kinds of reasons. But that course goes into more of the perspective, right? Why these things developed. Okay. So often they can be confused, or people will just make an assumption, but the development was completely different. Okay. So anyway, like I said, during this episode, we're going to take a look at 3, just kind of, big picture kind of thing, and what they kind of represent. And then we'll kind of, give you an overview of the other things that are there. When I say as a core, what I mean is as a core based on my historical research and things I've gotten from Hatsumi Sensei and other teachers and whatnot, and things that are recurring themes as they come up, without crossing the line where somebody feels like they might have to get involved in other uniquely Asian things, or things that they think might cross, I don't know, religious lines or anything like that, right? Could those things be on the list? Yeah, but for a core set, we're actually working from a baseline with 11. Okay, so anyway, again, we're going to focus on 3 today, and so the goal for the episode is to which I've already done, right, is kind of introduce the Seishin Teki Kyoyo as a missing key in martial arts and self-protection. I'll just kind of round that out by saying that just like leadership, or somebody who's in a leadership position, let's say they're managing, they could be managing a department in a company, or in a store or something like that, right? They could be managing or supervising a team of people. They could be running their own small business or operation. They could be a solo training student managing a lot of the aspects of training that it's kind of implied that the teacher takes care of, but because they don't have a local teacher, local school, local curriculum, whatever, right? There's a lot of things that we make assumptions about the teacher doing, like when you're going to train, right? You sign up for go to classes. I don't care if they're at a YMCA or they're at a professional academy like I have, whatever, right? There's a class schedule. Okay, the teacher establishes, look, this is when classes go on. This is when we have beginner classes. This is when we have all ranks classes. This is when we have advanced classes, that kind of thing, right? And so, you adjust your schedule and you show up for class. Okay. Well, for long distance students, which I have been my entire training career, I love it when people like to say, "Sensei, you don't understand." Yeah, kind of I do. And we didn't have all this online shit when I was coming up through the ranks. I know I'm old, but hey. So that means that somebody has to manage, right? When are you going to train? Okay. What are you going to work on, right? Because the teacher establishes, some people wing it. I did for a long time. Now we have lesson plans that we work off of to make sure that somebody can't say, I never learned that. Yeah, okay. Well, let me compare your attendance card with the lesson plan and what was covered during this block of instruction. I can tell you what days you learned it. So, but what are you going to work on, right? And for how long? And what are the standards? And those kind of things, right? And so within leadership, within that kind of a realm, right, there's an kind of an unwritten, well, sometimes it's written, right? Unwritten, unspoken, kind of not rule, but understanding that the end result is a reflection of the leader. Okay. So whatever it looks like is a reflection of the leader. Like often we can get off track at the academy with things or whatnot because my brain just constantly spits out ideas and I have to rein myself in. Hopefully the system I'm working on now will do that, but we'll see, because the outcome is a reflection of the person who's in control of it, right? So the department and how well people work together or listen to instructions or meet deadlines or whatever. It's all the supervisor and the leader. Okay. People won't listen to me. Well, then you got the wrong people. Okay. Or they haven't been trained properly, or we're letting them get away with shit. Okay. So same thing, right? If we're a solo training student, are we on top of things? Are we constantly getting feedback or review? Are we showing up for interactions with the teacher? Or if that's not available in your realm, are we requesting them, right? How are we making sure that we're on track? The techniques are correct and those kind of things, right? So something you can't get from just watching YouTube videos and assuming that you'll figure it out. But sooner or later, you have to figure it out. Okay. So anyway, again, another goal that I have is we'll take a look at how mental and spiritual training allows a warrior to master both combat and life. Right. One of the most repeated lessons that I've heard from Hatsumi Sensei over the years. He'll be doing some technique, or we'll be working on the combat side of things or whatever, right? And he'll say, not just a good martial arts idea, good life idea, right? For any of you that have a bunch of his books, right, it shows up quite often. Okay. And then again, we'll tie all this stuff together and for anybody who wants to go deeper, in this one, I don't do it very often, but we'll present an opportunity for anybody that wants to do that kind of thing. Some of you have known about the book being in the works and whatnot for a while, but here we are. Okay. So anyway, so let's just kind of move through things. And again, before I forget, we need to do this on a regular basis. So if you're on the YouTube side of things, or even if you aren't, I mean, you don't have to do it now, but don't forget, right? Subscribe. And apparently, like I'm not tech savvy. You would think that I am with all this crap that I have out, but apparently if you don't hit the notification bell or whatever over there, it's kind of hit and miss as to whether or not YouTube's going to let you know when I post new stuff, new videos, new uploads, when we go live with these things. Same thing on Facebook. Since this is KUDEN, right? We have the KUDEN podcast Facebook page. So, make sure you're like following or liking or subscribing or whatever is going to keep you in the loop. And if at all possible, share as well. For anybody that's interested, through this system that we use, I can provide folks with a link, and you can actually simulcast the live shows through your own page or platform or channel or whatever as well, which would be pretty freaking cool, right? Anyway, yeah, so now we got that out of the way. Let's check one more time here before I jump in too far. James, if you're not like neck deep in something, he's actually working in the background on a project as well. But anybody else jump in? Anybody else say hi? Questions, comments?
Victor's on, so good evening. And Greg from down in Australia.
Awesome. Victor, I hope that there's less pain today. As we get older, we always dealing with stuff and whatnot. And anyway, when my peers and fellow Budoka and whatnot are feeling it, right? I get it. So anyway, as a matter of fact, I've been at the computer way too much yesterday, today, just like last night, full bore. So right across my back. And but that's what I have. It's not why I have, but I've lucked out, and I have a senior black belt in my dojo that is a Reiki practitioner, shiatsu, body work, that kind of thing. So I have a standing bi-weekly appointment. So once I break myself, I can go get fixed, which just means that right afterwards, because I'm an A personality type. What does that mean, James? I'm just going to go break myself again because it's what I do, right? So I know 62 and old, but trust me, a lot of this is not the age, it's the mileage. So anyway, all right. James, you notice that when we do episodes that have to do with like combat, like direct on stuff like that, the numbers are always higher than we're talking about like personal development training, because within the martial realm, I think we've talked about this before. There are these, well, it's actually on the spiritual personal development side, these 5 aspects of a human being that we can work on, right? That well over 2,500 years old. Certain of these aspects, martial artists are very high in and lead with, and other ones not so much. And so consciousness and feeling, and I don't mean emotions, I mean like feeling, like intuitive connection with, right? Attraction, repulsion, or whatever. Very high on form, right? Which is why I get all the, comments about, being old, fat, and bald and stuff like that, right? Very high on judgment, perception, right? And very high on conceptualization, which is why people like to make up stuff. But they're all important for what we do as well. Anyway, but when we work on stuff in this realm, it can be hit and miss, right? But if there's one thing that I've learned from Watsumi Sensei and the other master teachers, is that, again, just like leadership, right? Warriorship, very different, right? Being a warrior is very different from being a fighter, being a soldier. I'm not saying a soldier can't have warrior characteristics or that kind of personality, but it's not necessary, right? Anybody that ever goes through the comparative program that I have, it's called Inner Path versus Outer Code, that compares the Seishin Teki with the samurai virtues. It would seem like the samurai is working on the same thing, but based on the way those things kind of came together, that's not a guarantee, right? Just because somebody is kind of acting outwardly a certain way doesn't mean that they're working on personal development and that's who they are, right? Very often, samurai would put on a face because they'd get in trouble or have to, commit seppuku if they didn't. But on the inside, some of these qualities and quote unquote virtues, right? A lot of these guys thought they were just bullshit, right? Because strong, powerful people. Okay, it's kind of like the martial artist or fighter who may have gotten involved in things because they were bullied or because they felt weak or whatever, right? Because they're these strong people, right? Do what I say, or I'm going to beat the shit out of you, kind of thing, right? Well, they end up going through the training, and without this side, right? Without this side of the training, and again, partially, because within the Seishin Teki, this is not all about personal development in the I'm becoming a nice guy, right? It's about power development. It's about the ability to do certain things that we've all admired, right? Whether we heard about it in one of Sensei's classes, or we've read about it in some of the books, or we picked up on it in the early days, where with the mystique of the ninja, whatever. Some of these are outright skill sets that they're in there, but they need to be pulled forward and honed and developed and whatnot, right? So, but without them, right, things can go awry. And so I've seen this more often than not. Again, where somebody gets involved in martial arts training, or again, self-defense, anything like that, to be able to handle the assholes, the threats, the attackers, the bullies, whatever in their life, and they develop a very high level of skill. But more often than I'd like to see, they end up becoming that person. They become that kind of, they become the same thing that they were trying to empower themselves or to be able to defend themselves against, right? So without the spiritual training, what ends up happening is this person then will begin to cock off, or just become more arrogant, or to intentionally hurt people. I know I'm always speaking truth, whatever. Okay. And then if somebody says, come on, dude, I mean, you should understand what that's like. Yeah, well, they should train, right? Otherwise, gonna get their asses kicked. Not true. However, right? Or they get reminded that, dude, be careful. This person might not like it. They might retaliate. Whatever. And then they say the same thing that the bullies did before they got involved. Right? What's he gonna do? Hit me? I'll kick his ass. Okay. So this is the balancing side, right? It's in Bushido, it's why those virtues existed in many cases, because, during certain periods in Japanese history, when they were using the term samurai instead of bushi, right? Samurai is the noun, right? It's a person, right? Title, class. The samurai, as far as a job title, meant different things at different points in Japanese history. So we got to be careful when we just think, illustrious, ride horse, wear armor, kind of thing. But it's the noun form of this verb, samurao. Right? Samurao means to serve. So samurai means one who serves. Okay. A whole bunch of history lessons as to why they switch terms, when and why, and all those kind of things. Not important, but so because there was this idea that still carried over into the transformation into this Bushi area or era and eras. Then there was this, this. Sometimes it was unwritten, other times it was codified based on clans or whatever. but someone who is in this position should carry themselves a certain way. There are certain things that you're kind of expected to do in that position, right? The way you carry yourself, the way you act, the reasons why. And again, different list over different times. Some folks, if you end up getting the book and whatnot, the last section of the book dives into that a little bit. And the list that I provide may not match up with the list that many people already have or have memorized or whatever. But that section isn't there to be a definitive outline on those things. They're there as a launching point for a comparison between the Ninja Seishin and this other thing, right? But either way, right? This is just this missing thing, okay? This missing aspect. Hatsumi Sensei, way back in the early stages of my training, right? We went from this ninja boom to louder and louder voices speaking out to quell the ninja boom, right? Because they thought we were stealing their students and whatever. I don't know. Some of you may already know that Stephen Hayes had to testify in front of a United States congressional, it was either congressional or Senate subcommittee that was investigating some of these allegations from some of these discontented martial arts instructors that we were going to rise up and take over the United States government and all kinds of wild, crazy conspiracy theories and stuff. The subcommittee and the investigation was to determine whether or not the United States government, right, Congress, would pass a law making this illegal, making this akin to terrorist operations or whatever. Okay. So folks have no idea, right, that maybe somebody that they've learned to hate or dismiss or whatever made sure that we could all still do this without the veil of like uber secrecy, without being outlaws, right? Like our spiritual ancestors. So anyway, right? But the theme has been, and the lesson from way back was that, because people used to say, "Oh, ninja, are you doing that ninja shit?" Whatever. I mean, they're doing it now, right? But Hatsumi Sensei's reminder, if you studied into these realms, right, Seishin Teki and the different levels, right, within a ninja clan, gaining Junin Jonin, and these subtle lessons that to be called a ninja is to be called a true lady or gentleman. Okay. So, not something to be taken lightly, right? But here we are. It's hardly ever discussed. It's hardly ever spoken about, right? Except my people have to hear it all the time because I'm here to teach the art and not some shadow of it or some aspect because, well, see, if you just did that, more people would train. I don't want more people to train. I mean, it'd be great if more people trained, but I'm not here to appease the easily satisfied. There's lots of other things for them to do. Okay, those who are at least inquisitive will start to check things out, right? But this art is not for and has never been for, right, the meek, the lazy, the easily distracted, the thugs. Okay, history is rife with stories about these people, and they were identified as, right, warriors from Iga or shinobi from this family or that family or whatever. But the reality is that they broke away and they became, in effect, mercenaries and or they used their skills for the wrong reasons. So when I see stories where they were caught and boiled in oil or flayed or whatever. I'm like, okay, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Okay. Now, how's that different from the ones who, were caught doing clandestine operations, fighting for a cause? Okay? They were protecting whatever, right? Those that they aligned with. Not the same as, using your skills to break into houses and steal people's shit or whatever. Okay. Anyway, so again, I see numbers are slowly on the rise. That's fine. Based on what I just covered there, James, any questions, comments? I'm always sensitive about bringing up the chat thing on my side, because if I hit the wrong button and it pops up and we have somebody to hijack the system, we still have somebody that every once in a while, they must be left out of the padded cell, or they slip free from their straitjacket, or they, whatever. They've appeased the powers that be that put them on meds, pop in and try to do some things, and James in the background filtering them out. So some people can't get it through their head that like they've crossed a certain line, and so I and none of my people will be interacting with them ever. So you can spam the shit out of our email, you can do whatever, but I'm not the person to say something and then like take it back later. Especially there's certain lines that if crossed, we don't come back from. Okay. So I guess what that means is I burn bridges. Well, you should never burn your bridges. You don't know. The world is full of folks that I can network with, right? It's kind of like worrying about losing a friend, or worrying about losing, a relationship or whatever that becomes toxic, or that becomes abusive, or anything like that, right? They are not the only person of the opposite sex, or whatever is for you. Not the only one in the world, okay? However, if I keep attracting the same type of person, then I'm probably gonna have to look in the mirror, right? But that's one of the things that separates ninja from samurai. Okay, we're not born into servitude that even if Jackwagon becomes insane, I have to still fight and die for them. Right? Now, if that's your thing, fantastic. Okay, then by all means, use terms like Budo and Bushido and Budo Taijutsu and those kind of things, because that's that realm. Unless Budo Taijutsu is the thing from the Buge, the Budo or Buge Juhake, right? The 18 areas of training within conventional Bushido, which Togakure Ninja were also required to know. Okay, that's in the book. Having to know the virtues as well. Just the reason they used them was often different, okay, depending on who they were dealing with. Anyway, anything, James? Anything pop up?
Terrence is on, and Victor said, I always found it interesting that many police departments adopted the terms to serve and protect.
Yeah, there was probably some development behind that, because ours, like many countries, had instances, usually in the really, really big cities, Chicago, Detroit, New York, LA, certain areas like that, where there were certain eras, right? Usually when they were fighting like huge gangster kind of organizations, where kind of adopted, right, certain tactics and whatnot. But yeah, so that's why very often in certain municipalities, right, they're identified as peace officers, right, and not just police officers. Yeah. So, but again, I don't think they get enough personal development training, or training to allow them to balance out the fact that, and I can speak directly to this, right? Swimming in, or having to deal with the worst that society creates, um, like almost 24/7, and then have to go home, be a different person for your family or whatever. So it's not an easy balancing act. Right. So anyway, anything else?
And Maui just said the way you're describing this is very insightful.
Cool. I can only present it based on not just what I was taught and how I was taught, but what I came to understand through actually going through the process and working on these different areas and whatever. Okay, so and that brings up a good point here. So I'm going to back away from the personal development, Seishin virtues kind of side of things for a moment, and just look at the combative side. Okay. So when we talk about an instructor, we talk about martial arts teacher, self-defense instructor, whatever. Okay. There are like, there's as many as there are personality types, but there are three basic categories, okay, that an instructor could fall into. And we can learn from any one of them. We just have to be really, really clear on what our goals are. Okay. So the first one would be somebody who attained their black belt or whatever level of black belt or whatever level of proficiency. Because somebody doesn't have to be a black belt to be able to teach you something. They just have to know that material better than you do, and they can at least get you started and moving along, right? Training group leaders do this. And I know it flies in the face of conventional reasoning, right? For those of you on the audio only side of things, I keep making air quotes, so if you don't catch my inflection. And what I mean by that is I've had lots of people when I was coming up through the ranks, I was certified or authorized by my teachers in this art. As a matter of fact, several insisted when I resisted that I should have a training group, and I said the same thing that these other people say. And then I got this logic, right? How can I teach? I'm not a black belt. And that's the same thing that I've heard over the years, right? When I was a group leader and I was not a Shodan yet, right? Well, how can you teach? You're not a black belt. Because I know more about this art than anybody that would be coming to me, and they're several levels below me. And as long as I keep working on things and developing, you can teach what you know. I mean, people do it all the time. They might not use the term teach. They might use the term, let me show you something. Or, oh, have you seen this? You can call it whatever you want, right? But here's the thing. One instructor, right, has learned things, right, and they might even do really well in the training arena. Okay, I don't necessarily mean sport fighting or whatever, but that might be in there as well. But where I'm going to limit this is they've learned the lessons, the kata, the skills and whatnot, and they passed tests and proficiency standards or whatever, right, to qualify for a rank or, to be authorized to teach or whatever. But the person I'm talking about right now has never been attacked. Okay? Now I'm speaking to this from a self-protection standpoint, right? And I will go to my grave focusing and screaming to the gods, if necessary, that there is a huge difference between fighting, whether sport or, two bulls on a Saturday night or whatever, and a self-defense, self-protection scenario. Okay, as an ex-federal cop who has seen my fair share of blood, guts, brains, and all those kind of things, nobody will ever convince me that they're the same thing. Okay, is there crossover? Sure. Okay, but anybody that goes out attacking people for sport, needs a different type of professional and a different type of help than I can offer them. Right. But anyway, this person they've never been attacked. They've never been in a fight or whatever where they've, ever had to use what they've learned under pressure. Okay. Does that mean you can't learn from them? No, doesn't mean that at all. Okay. But while they have lots of knowledge, their experience in the realm of danger prevention, attack mitigation, assault evasion, conflict resolution. There's lots of names for these things, right? Not a lot of experience. Okay. So we have to be careful, right? If we hear someone like that speaking a certain way, that would imply experience. Now, there's a little sidebar to this, or a little caveat. You pronounce it the way you want. If they are one, no more than 2 levels downstream, right? So upstream, their teacher, or no more than their teacher's teacher, which they should still have at least intermittent contact with, that person should have the direct experience, in which case they are speaking from, but they're still lacking. Okay. So they can pass on the lessons and the insights, but they're not speaking from firsthand knowledge. Okay. So that's one. Okay. A second one, learned all these things, right? Got their belts, got their, things were standardized and whatnot. Okay. But they have been attacked or they have been in fights. Okay. The difference here, right, is while this person has experience inside of what I call the bubble, right? They know what it's like inside that bubble. They know that the logic that people often spew that have never been there, right? And what works and what's, like I said, the logic and things that come out of this altered state, right? This adrenal response and this altered state that we're in when we're in that mode, we'll call it, right? Is often very different from what we think it's going to be, having never been there. Okay. So they have that experience. They know what it's like inside that bubble, but this one has never used what they have a black belt in and what they're teaching in that context. Okay. So they have to rely on, right, teacher's experience or whatever, right? So there's, a lot of still trust going on and whatnot, but they probably have a better chance of those things coming out in the right context, or at least not being overwhelmed should an actual violent attack happen, and them being overwhelmed and, things going sideways where they can't act, right? Fight, flight, or freeze turns into flight or freeze, right? Neither right or wrong. Okay. Can you learn from them? Absolutely. Okay. Again, what are your goals? And then the third one, right? Same thing, right? Learned all the stuff, has belt ranking, credentials, that kind of thing, right? Has seen violence, has dealt with it, that kind of thing. But this person has experience at actually applying, right? Win or lose, but applying the things that they're teaching under pressure, right? Hopefully, right? Winning, right? Like transitioning from a Hoko with a barrage of big ass arms trying to cave in your skull in a drunken stupor kind of thing. Not me being a drunken stupor, him, right? And then, whipping on a Mushadori that turns into an Ogyaku that turns into, oh, look, you're handcuffed. Oh, wait, you're still fighting. Now we've got to use short stick fighting and leverage to create a double ogyaku while affecting a kyusho that's at a certain spot on your spine that will make it so that, you're not going to operate very well. Right. So again, 3 different teachers all know the lessons. They've all learned the skills. They've all demonstrated, hopefully, proficiency with those skills within the dojo or the training paradigm. 2 of them have fight, real world, right, aggression, resolution experience, but only one of them has both the knowledge from the art and whatnot and the actual real world application. Okay. I know I have James busy on the other end and stuff, but James, how often do we see comments from folks that, mushadori, all these techniques would never work in a real fight, or never work in a real attack or whatever. And often my comment is, like, how do I explain that I was there, right? I mean, or all the times that I whip one of these things on or use Kyusho to control somebody or whatever. Must have been in a dream, maybe, or maybe it was my own drunken stupor. Who knows? Which I tend to not get involved in because it's difficult enough to manage the use of force against somebody and stay within legal bounds when you have all of your faculties. To not have them, or to have your senses dulled or your mental faculties and awareness dulled and whatnot from whatever alcohol or recreational shit that people put into their systems, probably not a good idea. Okay, especially when you have other people depending on you. Right. I say right because it's just a habit. You don't have to agree with me at all. But anyway, so I set that up because what I learned from my teachers very, very, very early on, right, is that there's also 3 types of teachers with regards to the personal development side of this stuff. Right. One, they just, they're either into martial arts or they want to just add another fight system or whatever, but they're not here to get into all this like woo-woo personal development, spiritual, whatever, right? No. This is about like breaking, this is about being the hardest person in the room to kill, all that kind of stuff. Not wrong. Okay. But their actions often show it. Okay. The way they interact with other people, we see it, on a regular basis. These freaking jackwagons that are give the Bujinkan a black eye, right? That are online, agreeing to fight people, whether or not they show up or not. Right? Just this dumbass bullshit kindergarten crap that goes on with no consideration outside of their own ego as to what they're doing or how they're representing or reflecting or showing respect or not, right, to the art and its past masters, to Hatsumi Sensei or the current Soke, their own teacher, and other students, right? Because if people bump into them first, and that's the first impression, I know, never judge a book by its cover. Yeah, I know, but that's not how we're wired. It's a self-protection mechanism from caveman days. Okay. So if that's who they bump into first, then they're going to assume that all of us act that way, which is why I have a clause in our membership agreements. Okay. Sounds really nice. Like I will faithfully comply with the rules of the dojo and the traditions of the martial arts and all that. But I look at the student when they sign up and I go, what this means is that whether you're in the dojo or you're out in the world, you're going to conduct yourself in a way that is respectful to your teachers, your peers, the art, the grandmaster or grandmasters, right? Because when people meet you and they interact with you and whatever, right? Whatever they perceive of you, they're going to assume that everybody else is that way. And if we're not that way, then we're okay with it. Right. So that's one of the grounds for dismissal from my dojo, okay, as well as the other Bujinkan kind of things, right? Although the major Bujinkan thing has a rule against that anyway. Anyway, so number one, right? The person is right, fighter mentality. I'll do what I want. I'm not into that shit. This is just something that they do in their life, right? It's just a part of things, which becomes harder and harder to maintain as we get older or as age or life related things kind of kick in, or priorities change, right? One of the ironic things about the training, Huntsman Sensei has pointed out over the course of my training career, is that there's this really weird irony that goes on, right? That the longer you train and the better you get, right, the less and less likely you are to ever have to use the physical skills. It's kind of like insurance, right? Your awareness gets better. A lot of these skill sets and whatnot, whether they're character traits or their actual like right kind of skill sets, right, just allow you to see the potential for danger or kind of karmic chains. And if certain actions, whether they're thoughts, words, deeds, whatever, are carried out, now that's going to lead in that direction or whatever, right? The ability to read personality types and all kinds of crazy things, right? So whether it's that or you just carry yourself in a very different way that is an equal balance of capability and humility. Okay. So we have the capacity and we're capable and willing, right? Kind of like the first guy, to engage in, right? But we'd rather not, rather live a nice, happy, cushy life, right? Snuggling up with my honey and hugging my grandkids and my kids. But it's the way we carry ourselves, right? So we look soft, relaxed, gentle, loving, forgiving, those kind of things, right? Because we genuinely are. But there's something about us that just sends a message. Right? Like I try to joke on a regular basis, right? I'll just meet somebody brand new, maybe a coworker of my wife's or I don't know, one of her friends or who knows. And she'll say, oh, he trains in martial arts and he's this rank, blah, 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 and they, and I go, I'm old, worthless, and weak. And they'll just kind of lean back and, yeah, I don't think so. Okay. And I just keep the joke going. Like, why does nobody ever believe me? I mean, like, just a teddy bear. Okay. But either way, right? So kind of stay away from thuggery because there's we recognize that there's a quality of life that we're seeking. And this training, the combative training, serves a purpose to protect and maintain that quality of life. For the first person, for a lot of people in that category, it is their life. Right? I've had people send me emails. Martial arts is my life, literally. Right? That phrase. In which case, I have to say, I hope your life expands and gets more deep and broad and fulfilling. Because this is all you ever think about, then you're going to be like these, televised ministers and stuff that are always preaching on all the vices in the world, and then people are always surprised when they get caught with a hooker or with drugs or whatever. Well, no shit, they talk about this stuff all the time, right? And they live in a bubble. So if that's what you think about on a regular basis, even if you're saying don't do it, you're still thinking about it. You think about it probably as much as people that are addicted to it. Anyway, so the first person, right, for whatever reason, right, this is not their thing. The spiritual personal development side, it's no. Look, I'm here for the mushadori and the shred people and whatever, right. Second person, they touch it lightly, but they're really not into that side. They believe it's important to be a really nice person, and they may get that from somewhere else, right? And so they're working on personal development, or they worked on it, or they're just a decent person, and they believe that it's important to act a certain way, treat people a certain way, that kind of thing, so as to not invoke violence or trigger something, right? So same thing, right? It's important, but not this way. I'm not doing the Asian thing. I'm not doing the woo-woo, whatever. Okay, I'll do it this way over here, but I'm not. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, and then you have the instructor, but this person they carry themselves well. They're a good example of somebody who is confident and maybe even humble and happy, and they first seek to do no harm, kind of like the doctor's Hippocratic oath kind of thing. But it's I don't want to say it's accidental rather than intentional. It is intentional, but the way they arrived there wasn't based on a learning curve, right? It wasn't based on a process. Okay. And then you have an instructor who, the more you learn on both sides, right? The more you learn about, especially on this personal development, spiritual refinement side, the Seishin Teki side, the more you see that they're a walking, talking example of the lessons, right? And try as you might to catch them faking it, or sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't, kind of thing. It's either really, really difficult because we're all working on stuff, right? Or it's consistent. They're consistent, right? The Japanese have a term for that gets translated in English as being a stand-up guy or being a stand-up girl, right? That's their term for, because they don't have one specifically, kind of like timing, right? They don't have a specific word for integrity. They have a bunch of different words that kind of point to it. They have phrases that imply it and things like that. But so kind of translate this way, where this person is a man or woman of their word. They live in accordance with, right, some of these important translations in the lineage names, right? Truth, justice, adaptability, those kind of things, right? So again, I certain points in my training career, I shifted from one instructor to another because of integrity gaps, or because access to certain levels of teaching, or whatever. Okay, so anyway, James, I know I keep interrupting you. I apologize. Any questions or comments based on what I just rambled on with that?
No, just Trinity and Dave both jumped on.
Awesome. Okay, so let me just jump into my notes here. Okay, so again, I think I made a big enough point that this is almost an undiscovered country for a lot of folks, right? It's there, a lot of people have, they've read the books or whatever, and so they've seen the 18 levels of training and Seishin Teki, personal development. Oh, okay, right. But what the hell is that? What does that imply? What is that? What is that all about, right? So here's another irony, right? While it's right there staring people in the face, and while Hatsumi Sensei does not and has not, right, made it a point to say, oh, this is in the category of, sometimes, right, you'll see it attached to certain writings in certain chapters of certain books, or we would hear it in class or whatever. He would make references to certain things or whatever. It's not like, here it's all wrapped up, right? And actually, the Seishin Teki, before I even wrote my book, I did some research, right? You can go to Amazon, look up books on the Seishin Teki and stuff. And people have come at it from different angles. And it's not that, the stuff is, I mean, it is what it is. But as with the case with Ninjutsu on a lot of fronts, there are things that they're collections of things from different sources and whatnot. So you take them with a grain of salt. But again, I think I found 2, maybe 3 books on the topic. Now, could it be worked into other places? Yeah, but like we're getting little mentions, right? It's like, a story about a dog being rescued from a tree or a cat being rescued from a tree on page 3 of the newspaper, and it's like this little, it's a little section, right? But 2/3 of that is a picture, and there's a little write-up kind of thing, right? So it's the irony is that this is another one of those hidden sides of ninjutsu. Okay. The reality, right, in our art, in the martial arts in general, is that most martial artists focus on physical techniques. But what happens when you're caught off guard and your technique fails, right? Mentally, right? What happens when there's a breakdown in the control factor that we have, or the level of control that we have, right? Do we revert to scrambling? Do we revert to suddenly powering through things and violating the principles and concepts that we're really good at when we're in control? Okay? Anybody can do things when conditions are right. But a lot of these areas across the Seishin Teki are about being able to operate effectively, efficiently, those kind of things under extreme pressure, right? When we're not in control of the encounter, but we can still be in control of certain faculties, right? We don't resort to what I call 2 6-year-olds slap fighting in a sandbox, which is what I see a lot of sparring looking like. Okay. So again, what if you're, caught off guard and your technique fails, right? What if your attacker isn't someone you can quote unquote fight? What if it's a boss, a coworker? What if it's a corrupt authority? What if it's the love of your life who's doing certain things, right? Now, love of my life that I've had for almost 20 years now. Not that we haven't had like our little moments here or there or whatever, but not like earlier relationships. Right? But what if it's that realm? What if it's not in the fight, the physical fight realm, but damage or potential damage, right, to our sanity, to our emotional state, to our ability to stay focused and function and productive, throughout our days, to be a loving, well-balanced, positive human being, right? what then? Okay. Do we hesitate? Second guess? We let emotions take over? What? Right? Okay. So this is why true warriors, right? Not my words. Natsumi Sensei's, right? When he talks about true Budo, these realms, right? This is why they train beyond physical skills, right? You know, what if the attack is to our financial status or our the security of our home? What if it's you know, to our reputation or credibility, right? That first guy I talked about is going to go want to beat. He's going to go and want to beat the shit out of somebody. Second and third guy may want to, but either because of the person they are or because of their ability to understand you know, karma and the bigger picture and things like that. It's not a weakness. It's a like, we're not going to go fan the flames because I can't look over mine and everybody else's shoulders that I care about for the rest of my life. Right. So we learn to choose the battles. Okay. This is right out of the scrolls. So, and people often miss this as well, right? There are Seishin Teki or personal development or empowerment lessons hidden within combat lessons. Okay. For instance, I believe it's the Tagagi Ocean Scrolls that has the secret to winning every fight that you're ever in or winning every battle, right? And because I know that you would just be jonesing to know what that secret is, trust me, for most people, it's going to be like, seriously, that's it. And for other ones that are probably rife for this kind of training, are going to be like, I think there's a lot that goes into knowing how to do that. So what kind of skill sets do I have to have? Right. The secret is to never get into a fight or a battle that you can't win. Okay. So we don't play the lottery with you know, our lives or our well-being or the well-being or you know, safety and whether it's, you know, financial, physical, whatever, of those who look to us for provision and safety and dependence and security and those kind of things, right? So how do you not do that? How do you know, right? Right? How do you know that, look, I can win this one physically, but based on their connections, based on, right? Probably not a good idea. Okay. So the point here, right, is that ninja didn't just survive battle or battles, right? They survived life's challenges. Okay? They did this by mastering their mind, different faculties and functions of mind, their emotions, their energy and energy reserves. I think we just did a KUDEN, a whole weekly theme, a couple of episodes back, I think, on energy and energy conservation and those kind of things. Probably do another one here in the future on energy development, right? How to generate more. But either way, right? By mastering mind, emotions, energy, perspective, those kind of things, right? So here's the thing. This is what throws a lot of people off. Seishin Teki Kyoyo is not about philosophy. It's not about philosophy. It's about tactical application in combat, in leadership positions, in business, in life, right? Tactical application of abilities and psycho-emotional skills and primitive abilities that we have that society and the social construct and whatnot tends to dampen and dull, that can be brought back out and honed, that can just make a huge difference in just how much somebody can endure, just how much somebody can keep going, no matter how boring, frustrating, threatening, whatever, right? A situation can be, to stay on course to accomplish the goal that they set out to accomplish. Right? I mean, shit, some people can't even keep their own word to themselves, let alone keeping their word to other people. As a matter of fact, a lot of people find it easier to keep their word to other people because they're afraid of what that person and other people are going to think of them, right? But because the words, the promises and things that they make to themselves, right? It's in the darkness and solitude of their own mind, their own heart, right? Well, nobody else knows, right? But there's tons of shit that they quit, right? On themselves, on their own dreams and whatnot, and then come up with all kinds of bullshit reasons why, the life or the world or whatever got in the way or stopped them, or all the corruption that, my lot in life and whatever. Okay. It is what it is, right? But the key thing I want you to get out of this little piece right here is that Seishin Teki Kyoyo isn't about philosophy. Okay. And when you actually dive in and actually even just start scratching the surface, right? Which is what I've really done in this book. Cover 11 areas, right? And so, but just scratching just scratching the surface in each one of those areas can make a huge difference, right? But once you start looking at these things, it's not a philosophy, okay? The philosophy is ninpo. The philosophy is like believing in natural laws and these principles and concepts and whatnot that give someone the ability to be able to produce results with the least amount of wear and tear on themselves as possible, regardless of whether it's physical combat, life struggles, a goal that that we want to achieve, but it's going to take some serious freaking work and wherewithal and whatnot. But once they even get a little taste of things, like the number of people that come to me after, James, you've probably heard this in the dojo, and I don't remember if you've mentioned anything or not, but the number of people that within weeks or months, I just had another person come up to me. It was one of the guys that just passed his Shodan test, right? That in a recent Goma goal setting, active meditation that we do. I'll do it as a group kind of thing, right? It's just a modification of something that comes out of Mikyo. I can't remember if he said it at fall camp or if he said it at Daikomyo side, which would have been in January. We just tested, right? I think it was earlier in 2024, but just regularly coming up and saying, holy crap, like this was the goal that I ran through the process, and just amazed at how stuff just really came together. Did I have to work on certain things? Absolutely. But like things just started falling in line. Yeah. Because you tuned your mind on several levels to accomplishing this thing, and it got out of the realm of wishful thinking or New Year's resolutions or, whatever we've come to believe and do, right? So it's not about philosophy. This is about tactical application of very specific skill sets and levels of development, right? With inner faculties and inner abilities that can be applied in combat, in leadership roles, again, in business or on the job, right? In life in general, relationships, and just across the board. It's really cool shit. But, anybody's not clear about the whole philosophy thing, right? Philosophies like, well, I'm going to step on some toes here. Philosophies like religions, like just about any ideas and whatnot, right? They can be traded out, and often are, because ego's looking for that which will get it there faster, right? It wants with the least amount of wear and tear and whatever, but the fastest route to knowing, or at least appearing to everybody else like I know and I'm in control, the better. Okay. So anyway, a little time for a break here before I move into the next section here. So James, questions, comments? Who do we got? Hey, look, it's James. It's that little window that just pops up like, doo-doo.
No, nothing right now.
Nothing. This is going to be like last week where I put everybody to sleep or I made them like bake, and it's like cooking a frog or crabs or lobster or whatever, right? Put them in that water. And I know often they'll boil the water and then drop the things in, but this is something that folks need to be paying attention to in the world, right? Because what makes people scream is when the powers that be, or the influences that be, okay, those who have your ear news-wise, pop up something that is big, right? Makes us jump, makes us scream, makes us, hyper vigilant. Okay. What we really need to be paying attention to is who's in control of the stove dials that's slowly increasing the flame and slowly bringing the temperature of the water up. Okay. So if you don't know the story of the cooking a frog, again, not that anybody cooked a frog, okay, but if you put them in tepid water, just what they're used to, okay, they'll stay under the surface because you're up there, right? And so they're evolutionarily wired to like jump in the water and hide, and that kind of thing, right? And so they have no need to jump out of the water. Like if that water suddenly went uber hot, or you dropped them in hot water, they thrash and do everything they could to get out of that friggin' pot of water. But if the temperature of the water is slowly brought up, by the time they realize they're in danger, they're on their way to sleep. And they get cooked that way. Okay? So it's not the threats, right? As ninja, we need to be aware of this. Yes, threats require action if they're bona fide, which is why we're information gatherers, not scrollers and headline readers. Okay? Finding out background from both perspectives, right? Not just the one I like to listen to or that I've already predetermined is right or wrong. Okay? The water being slowly turned up is all the shit that is keeping you complacent. It's the entertainment, it's the distractions, it's the, it's all the stories that, hey, you're taken care of, man. We got you. Okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. And then when it all falls apart, then the jumping out of the pot is way too fucking difficult because there's too much shit going on. The layers are too thick. Okay. Bushi, samurai, fight the fights of those who decide who the bad guy is. The ninja pays attention to what's really going on, where the real threats are, where the smoke screens are. So, anyway, anybody, anything come in last minute there?
Dave just said, "Don't lick the frogs."
Especially if they're tiny, dark colored, and have really bright, pretty spots. Those you don't even want to touch. However, I'm just the messenger. Do what you want. So, okay, cool. James, where are we in the project completion thing? Close.
Just about done.
Cool. All right. So let me jump into the next section here, and we'll just keep on keeping on. Let's see. Back to my notes. All right. So I already touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive into this a little bit more. Right. This whole warrior versus fighter kind of thing. I gave a couple of analogies and whatnot. Right. So let's revisit this missing element in most martial training. Okay. And I just alluded to this. Okay. This is not a segue. This is, well, I guess maybe that little thing about being careful, right, is a segue. Most people in our realm are training for a fight, right? But what if you never see it coming? The average person prepares for direct conflict, but a ninja avoids conflict whenever possible. In the Togakure school and many of the lineages that have been influenced by Ninjutsu, right? Gikan-ryu, Koto-ryu, Gyoko-ryu, right? Engagement is not, we don't engage directly, okay? So we're always very, very aware, right, of not where the bullets are flying, but where the opportunities are and where the openings are, right? Managing the Kukan is not just about keeping a safe distance away from him, but where you can still reach him as well. It's not about that. The Kukan is 10-dimensional. Okay. It's not just front, back, side, side. It's 10-dimensional. Several of those dimensions are in my head and heart and in his head and heart. Okay. And the more of those I can attack him on or be aware of, better off I'm going to be. Okay. So when you understand Seishin Teki Kyoyo, you don't need to win fights because, and here's a lesson I got before I even had a white belt around my waist. Okay. You don't need to win fights because you control the encounter before it even happens. Okay. I'll give you an example of that in my own personal life. The cops in my area know what I do, know who I am. And so when I look them in the eye, like, they show up in the area and there's something that happened or whatever, and we start chatting, and I look them in the eye and I say, I promise you that if anybody comes to my house, as a matter of fact, 2-3 years ago, right in the middle of our fire, we were having the house, put back in order, and cop came to the area because there was something that happened just down the block, and we got discussing these things. And, somebody wandered into somebody's place, and this whole fiasco just kind of blew out. We started talking about how when we were renovating the apartment areas above the old dojo that I moved my family into, so that my wife, fiance at the time, and I would stop paying separate rents because I was already paying for this building where the dojo was, and renovated stuff and moved in there as our place. Well, somebody was looking for apparently a local drug den where they could buy drugs, and got the address wrong and wandered into my house. Upstairs, there's my fiance, there's my kids. I'm teaching class. I didn't know about this until after, she ran down and told me and whatnot, and this guy had already left. But she kept telling him he was in the wrong place, and he kept looking room to room, just ignoring her. And he was a big guy, so she was kind of intimidated, but she kept saying, I you know, whatever. And her cell phone was in a different room, and whatever. So, and the kids were there, so she wasn't just going to run out, leaving this guy wandering around with the kids there. And so we got talking about this stuff, and I said, you know, one, I wasn't there, and I got there too late. Nothing happened. He eventually just kind of, I guess I'm in the wrong place. Well, no shit. I've been telling you that for 10 minutes. Anyway, but I looked him in the eye and I said, somebody comes to my house and I'm there, I promise you, all exits are at least 1 story off the ground. The closest portal to the outside does not have to be a door. And I said, so I will call you, tell you what I did. You come do whatever you need to do. And they just smile. And they just said, we know you, and we know that you would not do anything unless like it was absolutely necessary. Okay. There are other martial artists in the area. Somebody calls and said, you know, he did something, he's got a record of freaking just getting drunk and doing dumb shit and whatever. Okay. But we know you. Just tell us where to pick him up and we'll come and pick him up. Get your statement and we'll call it a day. Okay. That is controlling an account and part of controlling an encounter before it happens. Okay. Befriending or figuring out ways to do things for the community so that the police get to know me and get to know what I stand for. Okay. This is not like we were friends and so wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? I gotcha. It's not that kind of thing, right? Because if they back me up and I turn out to be, you know, underhanded, well, you know, that's their career too. So it's not that, right? This Seishin Teki, there's certain areas, and even with the virtues, right? When taken from this perspective, because the virtues were not established, not that samurai didn't buy into them, but they weren't, this was not a lesson like develop these things, be this kind of person. The virtues were more of a, this is expected of you, so do things this way because that's what's right and proper. Okay? A ninja determines for him or herself what is right and proper based on a higher ideal, ninpo. A samurai, first and foremost, serves and follows orders. Okay, so it's very, very different, right? Okay. So again, it just if I think back on my training career, right, where Seishin Teki was the deciding factor between success and failure, right? I remember being in a unit in the military where it was after studying this stuff and taking things to heart and whatnot, and teachers saying, look, you know, ninja often has to cross certain lines. So this is not about ignoring the law. This is not about breaking the law or whatever. This is about knowing the laws better than those who wrote them or better than those who conventionally have to enforce them. So they can't use them to get you. Okay. It's not about being corrupt. This is not about, people may not understand. How the hell did you get out of that? Right? Wait, what? All right. What tricky bullshit? Oh, yeah. Well, I knew the regulations, right? It was the military. Had a group of leaders, including my own squad leader, who, once they determined that, they didn't like you, then they looked for any reasons to throw you under the bus, all kinds of things. And had one of these incidents happen where there was a conflict of interest between what our normal routine was and a leader who was not making sure that his people were taken care of. He'd just meet you there, assuming that everything went well. Well, I got a lawful order from somebody appointed above me, and shit went sideways And there I was, this lower ranking guy, doing what needed to be done, show up late. This leader didn't want to hear shit because, right, you did it, whatever. And then next thing you know, I'm having to show up in front of the platoon leader, platoon sergeant. And I go in, here's what you're being accused of. Before we process anything, what do you have to say? When I enlisted in the United States military, I took an oath. And part of that oath was to follow all instructions and orders from those appointed above me. This person is in my chain of command. In this condition, they're in my chain of command. Normally, what he's talking about, I get it. But in this instance, he's in my chain of command. And so this happened. He said, do this. I did this. He didn't want to hear anything. Okay. And I quoted a couple of places from the UCMJ, which is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He's a military policeman, and so was he. One of us knew military regulations much better. And so I said what I needed to say. There was no twisting. There was no embellishment. It was just matter of fact. And the leader that was trying to throw me under the bus tried to interject a couple of times, and the platoon sergeant shut him down and, let me finish. And so he said, all right, wait outside. I'll call you back in a minute. I go outside. Well, the doors were they're not paper thin, but at the same time, he was not trying to dampen things. But the platoon sergeant let my immediate leader let him know in no uncertain terms that not that he has you, but you better be careful, because if you keep pulling the shit you're pulling, he's going to have your job. Right? I don't know what you're trying to pull. I don't know why you don't like him. I don't care. However, he's dangerous. He's not dangerous because he's out to get anybody. He's dangerous because he knows the rules. He knows the regulations. He knows what he's supposed to be doing. Right? And he knows how to protect himself when everything becomes a he said, she said kind of thing. Okay. That saved my ass more often than not. Okay. So, and we're not talking about somebody like, they're going to put me up in a firing squad or it's going to be physical damage. Could be, right? If I get booted out of the friggin' military and then I've got to find a job with this record, right? That will now make me less desirable, less employable in career fields that I would have liked to follow. But because of some jackwagon and not being able to handle things, right, where words were the sword of the moment, were the restraint, were the strike, right, were the not the distraction, right? It was the tool for winning, right? Okay, so this is not. Again, I'm going to tell you something that a teacher told me a long time ago, right? You're all grown-ups. You can do whatever you want. However, right, starting with past masters, passing this stuff down, right? He also said that what's in the scrolls between the Makimono and the Densho is the minimum necessary that they wrote down, minimum necessary to get us from where we are to where they are or where they were, right? In the shortest amount of time. We can either resist it, we can hunt and peck, right? We can get distracted, we can whatever, right? But it's the minimum necessary. And they wouldn't have fucking written it down. They wouldn't have put it in the teachings if it wasn't critical. If things are optional, they'll tell you. There's very little in there, right? Because Paper was expensive. Ink was expensive, right? It's just, this stuff was hard won by people who knew that, right? Without certain skills, physical and non-physical, you screw up. One of my teachers would say, you better look good in black. They would have said it differently, but you screw up. There's no do-over. There's no talking smack, right? It's just like in the Bible, in Romans, right? The wages of sin are death. Okay? Sin was an archer's term that meant to miss your mark. Keep missing your mark, right? We can use that term for missing a target, missing or not having it land with a sufficient bite, right? To start breaking things down or to end things immediately, as in the ideal, the technique that is an ideal, right? People like to see them as basics, okay? The term is kihon, right? Foundational, fundamental. That doesn't mean basic, as in like beginner, okay? Yes, it's given to beginners, but it's the highest level technique. Ichimonji no kata is an ideal. He throws one thing, you neutralize it, set him up so that he can't defend against what you throw in, and the shot you deliver disconnects everything and ends it for him. It's not about landing shots, scoring points, or winning a fight. You strike uko in Ichimonji no kata, that's a kill shot. Okay? It's an ideal. Okay? Everything else is a henka that points back to it. Not in form, every other technique is either a variation of Ichimonji no kata or is a, oh shit, I need to get back on track so I can land that shot that will end this damn thing. Okay? Permanently. Okay? So again, right? For a lot of folks, right, this will always be in the realm of, I saw it on a list. For some folks, it's interesting discussion, but it still sounds like philosophy because they haven't dived into it enough to understand that these are skills to be developed. Okay. So I'll hold questions here for a bit because I want to round this out. So I'm going to hone in on 3 core traits of a ninja mind, okay, of a ninja's mind, right? I'm pulling these directly from the book's content, right? Pulling from the 11 core skills or traits or study areas or whatever, right? But what I want to do here is focus on why they matter to a modern warrior. Because it's easy to write these things off that, well, it was a different time and, Eastern philosophy, we don't really believe in that kind of primitive stuff these days, or, it was all nice and, but, I don't really need that to win a fight in today's world. It's not, again, I've already covered this. Not about winning a fight. Okay? Does that mean you don't have to fight? No, sometimes you got to fight. Okay? But it's not the same way. Okay? So the 3 traits that I'm going to just briefly go into, and then again, very briefly discuss how modern ninja can apply these skills today, right? So the 3 traits are Fudoshin, immovable spirit, right? Zanshin, right? Lingering awareness, okay? Which is sometimes Zanshin is translated differently, or Zanshin is seen in the same light as Fudoshin. Before I really dove into this stuff, that's what I thought, right? Said, well, Zan and Shin. Shin is heart, and Shin. See, if we're not translating the words correctly, right? When the Japanese use the term Shin or Jin for heart, right? It's heart, mind, spirit, core. Same thing as kokoro for heart. Sometimes kokoro is used for mind because the Japanese don't separate the two. It's very different, right? So Fudoshin, immovable spirit, Zanshin, lingering spirit, lingering awareness, and something that should be familiar to everybody, Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? Kyojutsu Tenkan Ho, truth and falsehood interplay, right? Juxtapositioning, right? When do we use them authentically? When do we use them, right? Where we're presenting one thing, but it's actually the other, okay? And a lot of people always see this as like a trickery where you're hiding the truth and presenting it as a falsehood, okay? But it can be done the other way too. We can be presenting falsehood because we're hiding the truth. Okay? And it can also be get them to believe one thing when something else is at. It's very, very deep stuff, right? In Stephen Hayes' first book on ninjutsu, the ninja and their secret fighting art, there's a little story in there when he first met Hatsumi Sensei, and it was actually Tanamura, who was the other instructor that he brought along, who became Hayes' first teacher within the art, direct teacher, which would explain a lot of the stuff, the way the stuff that I was introduced to early on and how that developed. Okay, well, people can, come up with all kinds of Hayes made this up and whatever, and no, he didn't. Okay, this is the way it was presented, but by the time that a lot of these people came on board, Tanamura Sensei had already split away and created the Genbukan. So his influence wasn't around anymore. And since people were picking sides, Bujinkan, Genbukan, I'm on this team, they suck, right? As opposed to, how was he arranging the con stuff, right? People want to be ninja, but they're not really approaching the whole ninja thing really well. Anyway, so let's take a look at these things quickly here, right? So Fudoshin, immovable spirit, right? This is about how to stay calm and unshaken in high stress situations. Again, anybody can be freaking calm and cool and collected when they're in control, right? High stress, but I got this. Okay. So an example of this is tactical breathing, right? And mental reframing exercises in high risk encounters, right? So I learn these things, I learn the methods, and I learn the scripts or whatever I have to do so that under pressure, I don't forget them. And then whenever pressure starts mounting in any part of my life, right, I can run these things. Because if I don't learn to do it, and let's call them not life-threatening, but high-stress situations, chances are I'm not going to fucking remember how to do them or to do them when it doesn't get more stressful than if I screw this up, I could die. Okay? Zanshin, lingering awareness, right? This is about how to read people, how to detect deception, how to stay one step ahead, right? How to not drop your fucking guard at the first hint that you've won or the technique is over, okay? Or that they walked away. And I told them, right? Okay. So an example of this, like a real world application in combat, negotiations, right? Daily interactions, okay? Not dropping our freaking guard, okay? Learning to read people, understanding, right? I'm not, he's probably like everybody else. He's just full of shit. He's just like spouting off and stuff. Next thing you know, right? Guys lit up the place and you got workplace violence kind of, yeah, but he's not everybody. He's him. He's a certain personality type with certain experiences, with certain life stressors. Okay. This is the difference between looking at a tree and saying, there's a tree. Seen one tree, you've seen them all. And looking at a tree and seeing that tree from this side, in this light, from this perspective, at this time of day, this season of the year. See? Already it's too much for some people. Okay. Kids, Tenkan Ho, this truth and falsehood interplay. This is about how to control perception and use strategic deception or strategic truth telling, right? Some people are going to assume that just because of your relationship with them or their determination about whether you know what you're talking about, whether you're worth listening to, whether you are fat, dumb, old, bald, stupid, whatever, right? You could tell them the truth. They're going to think that you're lying or that you don't know what you're talking about or shouldn't be listened to or whatever. Okay. Which is great. Some people, you deceive them by flat out telling them the truth. Some people have personality types that they're always like, they never say things directly. So they're always like beating around the bush and stuff like that, right? Because, you know, to say it directly would be rude. Okay. So that person, whenever somebody tells them something, they're always trying to figure out what that person really means. Like, they're looking for hidden clues and all that kind of stuff because that's how they are. It's called transference in psychology. Okay. So you want to confuse that person and keep them tied up for a while? Just be direct. Just tell them the truth. Keep it flat. Keep it simple. They'll spend fucking days trying to figure out what you really meant, how bad things are, how you're trying to set them up and all that when you were just absolutely honest. Okay. So don't think that deceiving somebody is always about, you know, what most people think of as deception, lying and baiting them and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes the best way to deceive somebody is to just tell them exactly the truth, because their own pre-wired processes will do the rest. Okay? They can't believe that things, or that you or whatever, can be honest, can be direct, can know what you're talking about, can be whatever, right? Just tie them right up. Okay? But this requires your ability to go back to Zanshin, to be able to read people, right? So that you can stay one step ahead. People try to stay one step ahead through trickery because they would fall for the trick, or anybody, right, would fall for that trick, right? So they're trying to trick what, themselves? I don't know, right? It's this ego separation. Right? I know and they don't, so it should be easy to trick them. Now, when people don't fall for it, then ego makes up a story about why that would have worked if. So who got to be careful, because kids tenkan ho, right? Until we get clear ourselves, develop a sense of clarity about the way things really are and the way things really work and that kind of thing, right? What most people don't get, and that a ninja has to, this is why Seishin Teki Kyoyo comes first. Ego's game actually uses Kyoji Tenkan on each one of us individually. We are doing this to ourselves and don't even know it. We're the frog in the water who's absolutely content because it's warm, it's comfy, my own ideology, my own perspective and all that can't possibly be flawed and everything. And then by the time we realize that we've fucked ourselves, just like the frog's muscles that have already shut down, and the nervous system won't send impulses where they need to go and stuff. We can't jump out of the fucking water. So an example of this is in how controlling what an opponent believes creates openings in a fight or any situation, okay? Opportunities for ourselves. Okay. So how can we apply these today as modern ninja? Right? Many students struggle with confidence, decisiveness, the ability to handle high pressure situations, high pressure deals, those kind of things, right? Security and law enforcement, right? So we've got to be able to solve these problems, right? So here, just a couple of examples of how to do this, right? So business professionals or leaders or supervisors that are dealing with problem children that the uppers won't fire or whatever, right? Okay. We can use these things, right? And I group them for a reason because they're all tied together, right? To outmaneuver competition or this problem child or whatever, right? And handle high pressure deals, security and law enforcement, right? This stuff can be used to diffuse threats before they escalate, right? Parents and leaders, right? Teach confidence, awareness, problem solving to others, their kids, that kind of stuff, right? Okay. My kids got these lessons a lot growing up, right? Sometimes they were very overt and not taken well, okay? And other times, I was willing to allow them to walk into a wall. What I mean by that is to make a mistake, because nothing I say, because I was the dumb old parent at that point, right, was going to work. So I would just agree. Okay, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And then when it didn't, I understand what happened. Then we could have this conversation, right? That, what I found is, again, this is my perspective, my experience or whatever, but what I found is, and so what kind of happened, right? Well, like this happened and then that, see, now they're building experience. But if I always tell them what to do, when to do it, one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to resist it and go do whatever they want anyway, right? Or they're going to learn to ask the right questions based on the things that arose. And then I become that ancient ninja again, where I'm the advisor, not, right? And I'm certainly not going to be the parent who's just going to rush in and do it for them so that they don't have to. And then you have another person that everybody complains about because they don't know how to do anything. So instead of making fun of them, how about if we, anyway, so again, I've used these skills outside of direct combat situations to gain an advantage in, right, negotiations, right, with my kids, other relationships, job things, personal interactions, even teaching students. Lie to students on a regular basis, right? Because it's the only way that I can see if they're actually blind followers, which a lot of teachers want, right? Because they need that. They got no other power in any other area of their life. Or if they're actually paying attention and double checking their information. Okay. I'll give them a flawed technique to see if their ego is just going to I'm going to make this work. Or if they're going to recognize based on the principles and concepts. Right? One of the lessons I learned from Hatsumi Sensei that was given to us in the advanced levels was at certain levels, beginning at a certain level and moving on from there, you should be able to look at a technique that somebody's demonstrating and immediately know, right? Not because the technique is rough around the edges or the person, maybe their coordination's off or they're fairly new to things or whatever. Not because of that, but because of the logic, because of the application of strategy, tactics, again, the principles and concepts and things like that, whether that's actually a good technique. Okay. Just needs to be fixed here, here, and here, or that person just, as they get better with their timing, distancing, angling and whatnot. Right. And that's not just in our art, that's across the board, looking at any martial art, any fight technique and stuff, and knowing I can use that. Okay. Now we would apply it this way because we're not doing that direct confrontation bullshit. This would work better if we came at it from this angle. Right. But that's a good technique. And looking at another one, regardless of that person's freaking rank, credentials, how many accolades they have, how many other people are, that guy is the shit, right? Whether that technique will get you freaking killed. Okay? And until you can do that, you just have to trust with a healthy but respectful level of doubt, just kind of riding in the background. Okay. And so that keeps you from just blindly learning everything and not just, when something doesn't jive with your experience, you look at the teacher and go, not saying not saying this doesn't work, just from my experience. So can you explain that better? I love when students do that. Right? Just last thing I want are freaking blind disciples. Okay. So, the way this stuff can be used. I mean, I use this stuff. I mean, obviously, right? We live in fairly peaceful times. I don't live in inner city, wherever where drive-bys and shit are happening all the time and whatever, right? Certainly don't live in a Saturday morning kung fu theater movie where, can't even meet or pass a other martial artist on the road without, oh, my tiger claw will kill your frog spit, whatever, whatever. So here's this shit almost every day. I say shit in a respectful way, very loving and respectful way, right? So we'll talk about next steps here in a minute, but let's pop back here. So how about now, James? How about now? We there yet? Questions, comments, complaints? Sensei, you know what the fuck you're talking about? Yep, there he is. Squishy. Just I just pop your picture up big, and I'll be the squishable head.
Dave just said
we'll do it this way. Ta-da! Look at that. Your head's still bigger than mine. Look at that. Yeah, I think you're just closer to your camera. I have mine set way back. What's up? Dave said what? Dave is the guru of all gurus. I don't know why he just clings to. I don't know.
He said, "Can use the truth as the weapon."
Absolutely, especially people that don't want to hear it. That especially somebody's hot points, right? You want to be left alone for a while. You want somebody to go away fuming and stuff like that, right? Yeah, but don't tell other people. Well, if everybody else that's close to them knows that it's true as well, they're gonna be careful with believing that everybody who nods and agrees with you actually agrees with you. Sometimes they just don't want to. They're weak-hearted and don't want to ruin a relationship that they're afraid they're going to ruin by telling you what you really need to hear. But everybody should have at least one really, really good friend in their life who will tell them when they're being a shithead, when they're making absolute mistakes. Okay, it's one of the jobs of a teacher. Okay? You can do it whatever you want, but if you're going to keep doing it that way, right, then there's the door. Go find a school that does it that way, because you obviously believe that works better than this. Okay, are you afraid of losing a student? No. I would never be afraid of losing a lazy or bad student. Now, James knows this. The temperature in the pot gets hotter the longer they stay, and they've gotten through certain punches to ego's face and things like that, right? Till I think you've been in a couple of classes where I have a room full of black belts and they were absolutely pissing me off because one, this is not the day for me to go, no, look guys, okay, we really need, look, it's okay, I've looked at black belts that have designs on higher levels and told them, you have no fucking business working on that stuff when you've let half the shit that got you into that rank rust until it's unrecognizable. Right? So no. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to say no. I think that pick that up, right? But I don't have to do that a lot. It's just that, what the hell? How can you be screwing that part up? We can't possibly do this fucking technique. You can do anything step by step, but we can't do this technique until you have that freaking timing, alignment, control the kukan, whatever, better, right? But that also gets balanced out by, hey, what I want you to work on now is don't wait until that motherfucker takes ukemi or not takes ukemi. At the moment the balance has broken, not where they're going to stumble. I mean, there's a moment between he is absolutely falling and he's going to crash into the ground. About a quarter of a second. So you got lots of time. Okay. But that's your moment to reposition so he falls into the restraint and not where you have to fight to restrain him after you finished the last technique. So we're not stringing techniques together, right? He falls into it. So his falling body weight does 2/3 of the technique for you. So, and then what do I say? Right? You're going to mess this up a lot. Sometimes it's going to work. A lot of times it's not. But you need the experience. So get out of your own head. Don't worry about pass or fail, right? Because every time it doesn't work, every time it does work, you're going to get a better sense of where you need to be when he gets where he's going. So this is no longer trying to keep up in a defensive mode. This is knowing where he will be when he gets where he's going. So I just fucking meet him there. It's just like how Ninja would stalk people. I only need to follow somebody 3-4 times, maybe, to get a sense of how they always go to work, the route they always take to come home, where they stop off, right? The route they take to the mall, whatever. So that when they leave their house and they move in a certain direction within a block or 5, that turn that they make, I don't need to keep following them. People keep worrying about whether they're being followed. I'd wonder why that vehicle that I keep seeing every time I go to friggin' Walmart is parked near my favorite parking spot. Well, gee, I don't know. Maybe they already know where to set up because I always fucking park in the same spot within a couple of spots and get pissed off when my spot's not available or I can't park close to the door, like walking is already crippling. No, not walking is fucking crippling. Okay. Walking crippled is painful. So anyway, right? So yeah. Anyway, what else we got?
Well, that's all that I see.
That's all that you see. All right. Well, let me do a little wrap up here. And we are releasing the book and a follow-up program, a kind of an optional add-on kind of thing. It's on the information page. We're releasing it this week, and you guys get to know about it first. So I'm just going to go through this very, very quickly so you kind of get a gist of what's there. I'm actually going to leaf through the digital book. Eventually down the line, this will become a solid book. So don't ask if I have it as a solid book just yet. What I have it is in a digital form, so it's just easy for people to print out. And because the book is part educational, it's part representational, because for every one of the Seishin Teki elements that are in the book, there is a combat example, self-defense example, and there is a life mastery example. And then I was going to make a separate workbook. Some of you already know this. I was going to make a separate workbook and decided not to, because I just got on a roll and just integrated it in. So every section that you're working on, you can actually just stay within that section if you decide you're working on that thing. As a matter of fact, I also made some extra things to go along with it. One of those things is a 7-day challenge. And the 7-day challenge isn't something that I have to lead you through. It's you pick one, and there is a day-by-day thing to work on to get better. So at the end of 7 days, you should be better at that skill, quality, whatever it is. Okay. And then you can either go through it again or you can cycle. So there's a worksheet that leads you through the challenge, but you print out multiple of these things. And then the very top block, these 11 elements, right? Which one are we working on this week? Put a check mark on it. And that way you stay focused and shit's not chaotic, because James laughed his ass off tonight because I asked a question and I got the answer that makes me grind my molars next to nothing, which is, what are you working on? And my next statement was what, James? Right? It better not be better not be everything, because nobody can work on everything. And my experience tells me that somebody who tells me that working on everything is usually fucking working on nothing. It's a cop out. Okay. So, but somebody nodded, and I said, don't ever use that again, even if it's true. In that case, you better lie to me, because you're going to drive me off a rail, and it's going to distract us from class. It's not going to distract us from class. It's just going to change the lesson from, we're going to work on mushadores, but now we're going to work on a part of the Seishin Teki, which is stop blowing smoke up your own ass. Okay. Because by the time you blow it up mine, you've already deceived yourself. Okay. And that is misapplication of Kyujutsu Tenkan Ho. Nobody wants to be a hoe. So that being said, all right, let me get back over here to my stuff. Let's see. Do I have it? Let's see. Files. There we go. Bum, bum, bum. Seishin. All right. So let's bring this up. And I can share my screen, right? We already covered that before. I can share my screen. Which is where again? Where'd they move it? I see it. It's a little screen with an up arrow, isn't it? There it is. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Window. That one. Dun, 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 dun. Look at that. Yes, all artwork was done by me. So if you don't like it, there's no other graphic artist to be upset with, right? So Ninja's Path to Inner Mastery, and this is an introductory guide to using the ancient Togakure ninja secret mental and spiritual methods to not just survive but thrive in the face of adversity, right? It's warrior. Da-da-da-da. One of my guys was nice enough to do a little thing there. Anyway, I'm just going to zip through this thing very, very quickly, right? So there's an introduction. Again, a lot of the stuff is very, very brief because I do plan on doing a follow-up course on some of these things for anybody that's interested in diving much, much deeper. Okay. But just some of these topics, you'll see it on the information page, some of these things popping up, not tons, right? Really important reminder, right? There's nothing in this thing that is a statement or implication that this is all there is. As a matter of fact, there is a bonus thing that I made up for everybody, which is a list of it's an expanded list of study areas and skill sets and things like that that could have and have become a part of the Togakure Seishin Teki, because like the virtues, as new technology came in, as they became aware of new aspects, new abilities and whatnot, right, they integrated this stuff in. So I didn't want this thing to be a huge tome. So there are 11 elements to this. And so in each section, I give a brief description, an explanation as to why it's important. I give you a self-defense example, application idea, a life mastery example, application idea, and a practical exercise that you can start working on right away. Okay. So there are like 3 prompter questions. I think sometimes I might even go to 4. And there's a notes section kind of thing. There's also additional things that are in here if I thought that students might become confused when there's the use of mind a lot. Shin, Tenshin and Zanshin and Fudoshin and all these things, right? So what are we really talking about? And it's not splitting hairs, right? But here's how these things kind of relate and play out, kind of thing, right? So there's a lot of depth. It's only 46 pages, but it goes into, say, there's examples and things like that, next steps, right? Just kind of leads you through things, okay? And while a lot of these things, the names are the same as they would be in some of these virtues lists, we're not talking about things from the same perspective or direction, okay? Is there overlap? Sure, right? But it's not the same, right? So this is a combination introductory guide and educational resource. as well as a workbook. Say I made charts. I'm saying there's to clarify differences: Fudoshin, Heijoshin, Mushin, those kind of things, right? So there's a lot going on in here, and you're probably going to need way more room than I gave you for notes. But this started out to be something that was going to be like 9 to 12 pages and blew up into 46 pages. So while still a relatively small book, there is a shit ton going on in here. So this is not something, well, for a lot of people, this would be something they read, like, I don't know, to page 19, like most self-development books, and never look at it and go, oh, yeah, I got that book. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, okay. So there's that. And then there's a whole extra section. That's another difference between certain areas and certain things: practical examples, sample exercises. There's a whole bunch of extras in here that go beyond just the individual elements. And then I did a small section on the 7 virtues. Very brief contrast, right? There's a much bigger one. I'll pull up the information page here in a minute, right? But here's a very simple comparison. This is not the audio course that I did. That I just need to get the lessons uploaded. So if you do choose things at that tier, just know that, just give me 24 to 48 hours and all the lessons will be where they're supposed to be. That's the only thing that's not up and in place yet. Eventually this will be a solid book as well, paperback kind of thing, so it's still, or spiral bound, so it still functions as a workbook, but I needed to get this out into everybody's hands very quickly. We find, James, do you already have the information page up that we can just kind of scroll through quickly? If not, I can bring it up. Yes, no, maybe
Not on this.
All right, just give me a second here. For anybody that cares, let's see. That's my backroom file. I'm not still sharing, am I?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. Online. Oops. Seishin. The information page, James, if things are already set and ready, you can already put that up if you want. For those who care, it's at onlineninjaacademy.com/Seishin Teki, SEISHIN TEKI, all one string. Let's see. Let me share my screen here one more time for the slow readers or the fast readers or whatever. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. There we go. Okay. James, let me know when folks can see that.
Yes, sir.
All right. That was quick. All right. So anyway, it's just, again, I've got the book pictured, but again, more than the book, let me just get down here to some of these things, practical, examples and whatnot. Several bonuses that I made that are both linked to from within the book that I don't have the centralized download page yet done. That'll be done tomorrow, where all these things can be downloaded from. But once you get access, there's a page you're going to get that has it. I just decided I was going to put an extra one for people that only get the book and not some of these other things. So I made a pocket reference cheat sheet. This is something that it's in PDF form. You just keep it on your phone. So the 11 core elements are listed that way. Second one is a 7-day Seishin Teki challenge. That's that worksheet I was telling you about, where you pick one and then I give you 6-7 days, right, to work through it, to get better at it and stuff. Again, I'm going to formalize more and more of these things as I get more feedback. If people are really interested in diving into these things and really taking the bull by the horns, then we can do a lot more with it. Okay. Bonus 3 is a do-it-yourself self-assessment, right, where you can establish a baseline for yourself throughout the 11 elements to grade yourself, right? Where am I? And so you can decide where you're going to work, wherever you want, however you want. But the way I have it set up is my recommendation always is to work on the things that you're lowest at, but that's not always a given, because if certain elements require other ones, right, to come together before that one will even start working for you, or can even be worked on, then obviously you have to work on those, right? But it's a way to establish a baseline. And then here's that ginormous list, right? This expanded study and training checklist, small font, 3 pages, a bunch of other training areas and stuff like that. Okay. Now, I know we've all done this thing where you purchase a book, and next thing you know, you end up on this other freaking page where there's this option for this thing, and then there's another thing that pops up. Hey, do you want this too? Right? I'm being very transparent on this page, right? So there are 3 options, right? And I just lay them out. Now, as I continue working on this, there'll probably be that same kind of format for folks that pick the book and those 4 bonus things alone. And they'll still, kind of remind you and give you those options on the way through, just in case you change your mind. But what I did was on this page, I just lay them out. Look, there's going to be this, there's an upgrade offer, and there's this other thing for one of our well-established programs, really, really popular, that, if you get it through this thing, you can, I think the savings on this one is $200. So option 1 is just you get the workbook, and you get the what do you call them? The 4 bonuses, right? And so $27. Okay, like I said, there's way more. I mean, I know I'm not paying $27 for a 46-page book. Okay, but like when I do the full-on program with these 11 elements with nothing else involved, it's not going to be $225. So, all right. And for those who do want to go deeper and stuff, there is the order. Eventually, it's just going to be an order bump or whatever. I created this. It's now a series of lessons. It was originally taught to one of my inner circle groups as one of their weekly classes. So I call it Inner Path versus Outer Code. And so it's comparing the Seishin Teki Kyoyo with the samurai's 7 virtues. That little section that's in the book, this blows it way out of the water. Okay, it dives into things like the history, how they developed, all kinds of stuff. When I'm talking about the virtues, right? And then there's this huge comparison between like how a ninja would approach this given thing, how whatever. Okay, so again, it compares the ninja's mindset to samurai Bushido code, breaks down differences in living and thinking as a warrior in both realms, that kind of thing, right? So it's just it's $17. The options that I put here at the bottom already has the stuff added in, right? And then this is that program. Some of you have already gone through it, so you don't need it, but it's a program that I did a long time ago as an one of the base level introductions to the Mikyo stuff. That is not in the book, that this is actually a primer. It's like a bridge between the martial lessons and some of you have gone through a program called the First 7 Steps on the Path of a Buddha, or an awakened one, an enlightened one, which is a precursor to full-on ninja training. So, but like I said, really, really popular. Normally goes for $297, $397, something like that. And so if you grab it during this thing, it's $97 or something else I threw in as a last minute. But again, so it's same thing. So there's 1 level. There's with the upgrade, the extra audio course for the comparison kind of thing. And let's see, what else do I have with that one? Just a deep dive, critical differences, that kind of thing. And then if you want to do the whole, I call it the master's bundle, cool names. So I decided at the last minute that it wouldn't just come with the Ninja Mind program. This was originally a full 10-week training course that was live that my students went through. Now you go through it at your own pace, right? But I'm also throwing in a 30-minute private coaching call with me. And so we can discuss one or more of these areas during that time, or, whatever part of your training you're having problems with. I promise I'm not going to try to sell you on any programs or anything during that one. If you're interested in any, of course, we can talk about them. But again, 30 minutes, I normally charge $300 an hour for private coaching and stuff. So 30 minutes, $150. I decided to throw it in. Okay. So it's not even added on to the price of anything. Okay. You will get immediate access to the book and the the audio course, if that's what you sign up for. We would have to schedule, obviously, the coaching call, that kind of thing, right? And then everything is just there. You pick the one that works for you. That's it, James. Our let me stop sharing. Where the hell is my sharing thing? There it is. So stop sharing. I did share, right? Did that stop? Oh, stop screen sharing. There we go. Okay. So everything is set up. Everything's all set, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anybody that wants anything or wants to jump on anything, whichever one you pick, they'll end up on a landing page, right? Or they'll end up on a delivery page that has whatever it was that they chose. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So dragging our feet long enough. So if you do get the one with the audio course, I just have some files I need to finish up and get them up and editing, get everything linked. That'll be done within 48 hours at the absolute max that you'll have access to that stuff. If you get the full on thing, the Ninja Mind thing is ready to go. It's the same. It's probably the same download page that people always land on when they're getting these things. Right. So, by the way, if you're in my Platinum Elite level, right, you're in the inner circle, but you're at the upper level where all the programs are included. Don't get any of these because they're already going to be added to your thing, right? So Terrence and Carl and those folks that are at the top level, where everything that I've either created in the past or will create while you're an active member, don't unless you want to donate to MVF, which is Miller's Vacation Fund, or my incessant need to get James on board full time. By all means, we'll take extra donations, right, James? Okay. As a matter of fact, I've thought about putting a donation thing up for Whiteboard Wednesday and KUDEN to help allay some of the extra costs we have back room to put this stuff out. But either way, questions, comments from anybody? I just need to jump over to my notes and do the little wrap up thing here. So what do we have? Anybody?
Dave said, nice. It's nice to have a workbook part with the book.
Yeah, I was going to do a separate one, but it was just, in all honesty, it was going to be like a lot of extra work. And given the fact that like 80% of people who get programs don't do a lot with it, so, but I also thought by integrating things together, they wouldn't have to be jumping back and forth between two things. Like sometimes you get like, a book on something, and then you have to get like the workbook or the activity, whatever you call it, right? An activity or workbook or whatever to do the processes. And then you have to like bounce back and forth. I didn't want that to have to happen. So again, okay. So next steps for anybody that is interested, right? We've been training our bodies for a long time. For those interested, and I've already got people that have been doing like the Mikyo side and all that kind of stuff. That fits into Seishin Teki, but it's not something that I wanted to make a part of these core 11 elements, because people can get a little weird about that stuff, right? So I let that be add on, just like it would have been added on as time would have gone by. But these 11 elements that are in there, from not just my perspective, but from working through these things and recurring themes in training, and Atsumi Sensei going into certain things, whether they're books or videos or in classes or whatever. These are like, from what I've come to understand, they are non-negotiable. Okay. They're non-negotiable. Right. So again, the book's ready, with the exception of getting those files up and everything for the comparison stuff with the virtues. It's everything's ready, right? So it's a deep dive book. Again, what you're really learning is tactical mindset, awareness, and control skills that can be both applied to combat and your self-defense stuff. I mean, you'll be attacking somebody on multiple levels instead of just doing physical techniques with your body to their body and doing some, in all honesty, predictable strategic manipulation that all fighters do, right, to try to gain an edge, you are going to be in their head and heart, or picking up on things that they don't even know they have as a tell. So this is not just a game changer. This is being in a completely different realm with the way you'll be defending yourself or defending others or whatever. But again, this is a life thing. Like hardly a day goes by that I don't use not just one of these 11, but when you see the expanded list, there's a bunch of stuff that I have studied or learned from or whatever, and stuff that I thought was far-fetched when I first started, that the more I became open to things, the more I started applying them. Right? Trinity and I talk about this stuff on a regular basis because she's a psych major and she's going to be a member of one of these 3-letter agencies that whatever you think they're doing to manipulate things, my daughter now is engaged in sometimes coming up with that shit. So look, here's the thing. This is the stuff that allows you to control the narrative, which is a big lesson from Takamatsu Sensei, right? It's not fighting the same way. It's not fighting the fighting his body, fighting his mind, that kind of stuff. This is controlling the fucking narrative, right? And here's the truth. You either control your own narrative or somebody else is going to control it for you. So even if you don't use this on anybody else, just like with a lot of my programs, right? I have a program that maybe I should have made as an extra bonus for this as well. It's called Ninja Motivation and Influence, right? It was designed to share like really deep-seated psychological principles to get practically anybody to do whatever the fuck you want, right? And 80-90% of the people that enrolled in the program through the live thing, and people that have done it as a do-it-yourself thing later on, use it on themselves to unfuck themselves as opposed to using it on other people. So why not, right? So again, it includes exercises to train these skills in real time. And, I've got these extra bonuses and stuff thrown in now. Who knows what I'm going to be doing with it later on when it turns into a full-on book, right? A solid book. I'm not going to be able to attach all these other things because it'll be sold through Amazon or whatever. And I won't be able to link all these other things. So the price of the book is the price of the book, but it won't be including extra stuff, right? So, opening things up to any last minute questions or comments. But I have one or two to kind of get you started, to kind of get your juices flowing, and then we'll kind of wrap this up, right? So the first one is, what's been the hardest mental challenge in your training or self-protection journey? What's been the hardest mental challenge for you? Okay. And 2, do you think Seishin Teki Kyoyo is overlooked in not just martial arts today, but within the realm of ninjutsu, right? And then why don't you think those things? Okay. And then we'll let that go, right? Maybe next week we'll take a look at, I don't know, some comments or questions that end up popping up with this. Okay. But anyway, that's what I have. So let me just get back over here to that screen. So James, any last minute questions or comments? I seem to lose too many people when I talked about the book. So people might be interested. Who knows?
Trinity just said fun stuff. Very fun stuff.
Wait till you read the book. Especially the exercises to get you started. Maybe some of them won't be so fun, because part of what a lot of people don't understand is that part of development and mastery of any given skill set for actual proficiency is 10 to 20% learning the new lessons and skills to be developed, and 70 to 80% or 90% of dropping shit that we do, think, believe, or whatever, that is and will get in the way of those things ever developing. Like, if we don't drop procrastination, laziness, and looking for the fucking easiest route, there's most of these skills will never develop, or will never develop to the ability that we could delude ourselves into believing that will save us against a fucking butcher on the street who doesn't give a rat's ass about you, your family, or anything, right? But because it works in a dojo 9 times out of 10, then I automatically jump to believing that I got this shit. Okay. So anyway, anything else?
No, sir. That's all I see.
All right, cool. Well, doors are open for it. We're going to officially start rolling things out to the subscriber list and all that kind of stuff. Just know that right now the 30-minute coaching call is on there. As soon as like time is like booked up and I can't do any more, I'm taking that one out. Right. I'm not changing the price because I just added it in. Right. But that's going to go away. So, and I'm actually toying with the idea of people having to like pay for an initial call, but I'm not sure yet. Because training's training, right? I've spent, we'll not do that math. So anyway, but we'll do that. And then, so I've also started, so we got this weekly theme. So Whiteboard Wednesday is going to play on some mental abilities and tactics and whatnot to apply strategically and tactically in a fight or in a defense situation. And then Friday's coaching call is going to play into that mind games kind of thing, right? To make techniques easier and better. That'll be cool. But other things you should be aware of is that beginning this week, I have started an online newsletter that it's a once a week kind of thing that there'll be an extra like tip or insight kind of thing. There's, heads ups on things that are coming and things like that, in addition to all the other stuff that's already coming out. So if you already think that you're getting too much from me, then just unsubscribe. I won't be offended. Right. I pay for every name that's on the list. And so if I don't have to pay for people that are just not opening shit and not reading it anyway, thanks. I appreciate it. Cool. And it saves us from having to go in and find somebody's name and email address and delete it. And right. So there's that. And don't forget spring camp, right? Koto Ryu Secrets and Yari, right? Soul Jutsu. From the perspective of both, it's a fucking cool weapon. 2, it doesn't get covered a whole lot. And 3, if you know me, you know that we are covering it from the perspective of learning the principles and concepts of how do you get a long ass weapon into position to surprise the shit out of somebody, right? To really understand those principles and concepts so that you can integrate them into smaller weapons and your unarmed stuff. Okay. And for those of you in the Ninpo Masterclass and the Inner Circle, especially, well, the way they tie together. Right now, I've got these names like Platinum and Inner Circle and that kind of stuff, right? I'm doing a name change, right? So we got Ninpo Masterclass. That's the introductory kind of program. Those of you who are now in what we have been calling the Standard Platinum program, that's going to be called Ninpo Mastery because it's closer in line with the Mastery Leadership Program at the dojo. So Ninpo Mastery. Benefits and everything stay the same. You'll just start to see a different name. And then those of you who are in the, what do we call it? Platinum Elite, Platinum Plus, whatever. It's just being called Ninpo Elite. Okay. The newsletter to stay in line with everything is called Ninpo Insights. Ta-da. Right. So I'm just going to stay more congruent with that stuff. And then, but anyway, so I was sicker than a freaking dog. Anybody got my email that said I felt like I got hit by a truck? That was, I know I didn't get really hit by a truck. However, if I ever call off and need people to cover for me for classes, like my black belts know I can't get out of bed. So, and if I was getting out of bed, it was dire emergency and had to run to the bathroom. So, so Shidoshi Whistler covered what I was originally going to cover Friday's class. But since we have less people that show up for Friday's class than we do on Tuesday, I'm going to do it again. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to do the same lessons or the same techniques or not, but we're going to approach things. And the big difference was in understanding. One aspect was in understanding the difference between, and we just use, at least I had him use Ichimonji no Kata. I wasn't there for class and didn't look at the recording yet. But Ichimonji no Kata, we know what it looks like, or I think people should know what it looks like. Gyoku, not Gyoko, because we're divorcing ourselves from the names of the lineages, not divorcing ourselves. But people keep wanting to know if this is a Gyoko technique or a Koto technique. That's not the right fucking question. The question is this a Koppo Jutsu technique, a Dakantai Jutsu technique, or a Koshi Jutsu technique? Or is this a Jutai Jutsu technique? And if it is this a structured Tagagi Yoshin application, or is this a more free, natural, I don't give a shit where he lands or how he lands, Shinden Fudo Jutai Jutsu approach? So that's when the names kind of come in, right? So that's been my approach. Okay. So Tuesday's class, I'm going to do more with this. And since everybody's probably already done them a little bit, what my plan is to do a model, a basic technique, but we'll be looking at it from a Tagagi Yoshin and a Shinden Fudo, so people can get a feel for what the difference is between, because they both say Jutai Jutsu. So before we start assuming that they're the same, I'd like to rectify that situation from people that depend on getting accurate training from me. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Anything else pop in there, James, before we wrap this up?
Just that Victor said he ordered a copy.
Okay. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right, James, dude, I tell you all the time, I still don't think that you're looking to know just like how much I appreciate how much you do for me, for the dojo. So I really appreciate it. The least I could do was giving those arthritis strength pain relievers tonight when you came in with a headache. And I don't part with my pain relievers very easily, but yeah, anyway, it's the least I could do. So anyway, that's it, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. All right. For everybody else, hopefully I'll see you for Whiteboard Wednesday. If not, well, then maybe for Friday. And if not, well, then I'll see you next week on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at online